All right, thank you for staying with State of the Nation on Daybreak. Here we're discussing all matters, politics, and everything in between there. I see a lot of your feedback. In fact, before we get into the next discussion, which was supposed to be the rush to install Koome, and I'll start on this side, there's a very important question here from Koa Frederick, who says this is a great discussion on Citizen, but Wayaki Ngangu says, why are the legislators asking questions about KEMSA on Daybreak when we need answers from them? Or is Parliament reserved for matters BBI only?
You know, as legislators, or rather more explicitly lawmakers, you know, what we mostly are empowered by law to do is to make good laws to those who are given the responsibility to execute, to follow those laws. And sometimes when you hear us, you know, complaining, not necessarily lamenting, it's because you make good laws, but then bad people abuse those laws to do the wrong things. And then once the same laws are given to other players so that they can use them to stop those that are doing those wrong things, they don't use those laws. And sometimes that's why you have to speak out, such that also members of the public can understand why is it that we have a merry-go-round over issues that are supposed to be resolved, and we get and find progress. And I think at the end of the day, as a country, this is where we have to have a confluence of thought and intent, such that what the person who is supposed to implement that law, the person given the job, as the legislators and the wananchi, that we think alike, we have the same goals, same aspirations, and same intent, then that's how people make progress. And I think that can only be underlined under one word: patriotism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Start us off on this one.
Let me respond to that also. Okay. It must be understood that it is part of our role to ask questions. It is part of our role to ask questions on things we have no jurisdiction to deal with. That is why we are elected. In this case, there's a process already in Parliament through the PIC that is ongoing. And as long as it's ongoing, we cannot find a solution or a resolution until the matter is tabled. But by and large, as parliamentarians, in such matters, we are morticians. We cannot intervene. We can only question after. Secondly, it must be understood that on matters such as KEMSA, on issues including of appointment and retention of people and retention of the entity, that lies squarely within the executive. We cannot assume executive roles. Lastly, is that the Constitution creates not just Parliament, the Judiciary, and the Executive, but the Constitution also has what sometimes has been called the fourth arm, but some people call it entities sui generis. They are entities on their own, constitutional commissions and independent offices, such as the office of the DPP. It is outside the jurisdiction of Parliament or even the Executive to direct the DPP on how to do his work, including the Inspector General of Police. So when they don't do, our only role is the eventual oversight. When they then bring their report, then you can ask, but how come you did not pursue this? But you can't start directing them that now you, the Inspector General, go and arrest so-and-so, you DPP, go and prosecute them. You must then question on behalf of your citizens, why are they not doing this? So when we question some of these things, even in this media, or even inside of Parliament, or even at a funeral, it is part of our role.
Okay.
Yes. I think, can I weigh?
Yeah, very briefly.
I think briefly, what I can see, because I know that is the question most citizens ask, or most people ask. What is Parliament doing? You work and people confront you. What I can say is that our role is, as when a report is being tabled, we can adopt with resolutions. Yeah. But those resolutions does not necessarily direct the independent agencies, as my brother said, most of them. Yeah. So in Parliament does not have prosecutorial power. So we can't go and arrest officials who have been accused of corruption in KEMSA and take them to court, or we can't take them to prison. So to answer him is that in as much as we would want answers, our role is just to question. And as you have heard, our role comes at the tail end, when now that mess has happened, and that is why we hope agencies like EACC, they have a role to prevent such things from happening. the DPP and many other agencies, the executive who are supposed to ensure that the appointments within the KEMSA is good. And even the parent ministry, if there is an overhaul that they want to do within KEMSA, it is within the purview of that parent ministry. So by answering is that in as much as Parliament, our work is also to oversight, but we don't have as much as power to convict somebody, to send them to prison or to prosecute them. Okay. Just to investigate and maybe make recommendations and adopt. And by the way, and I know this is sad, most of the reports in Parliament, both in the Senate and the National Assembly, is that most of the reports we have taken, adopted those reports like the Solai Dam report. You now recommend so and so be prosecuted or administrative action be taken, but that is the much we can go. We don't go beyond, nothing happens. So it is unfortunate. And it goes yes, we can just recommend, we can adopt a report, we can say let this be done, but most of the reports that come to Parliament, unfortunately, some of those reports we recommend and adopt. We can't do more what we recommend because we don't have the police who can arrest you, we can't prosecute you, we can't convict, but ours is just to ensure on the issue of accountability. That is why we question. All right.
Mutua, do you want to comment on this one, or do we move to the next one?
We can move to the next one.
Yeah, because I wanted you to be the one to open this discussion. They have started discussions much earlier. The rush to install Koome, hurried or not, a day after receiving a nomination by the Judicial Service Commission, President Kenyatta has asked the National Assembly to vet Martha Koome for the position of Chief Justice. The Speaker wants MPs to speed up the process, even though the law allows for 28 days. First of all, what was your reaction when you saw the JSC selecting Martha Koome for that position?
I was very happy. Yeah. Let me just comment on just what they said, this question in Kenya with one line, that is the stone that has been talked about when they say no stone shall be left unturned has been covered by more stones in this country. So there's no movement. And that is the problem we have in this country. Okay. And they may have all the reports. You go to Parliament, you go to all government offices, there are reports basically decaying on the shelves that have not been implemented. And that is why we suffer today. About Martha Koome, I'm smiling. I'm smiling. I'm happy because we've gotten somebody at last to fill in the slot of Chief Justice, which is very important. I'm also happy because the whole process was out in the open. We as wananchi and as leaders also got to watch and listen to people, and we got to see the integrity, the ability, and the power, or according to that interview, those interviews. Well, there's more to a person than the interviews. So I want to congratulate the committee that made the choice. They have made their choice, and I'm glad that President Uhuru Kenyatta has already approved it and sent it to Parliament. And there's nothing wrong with President Uhuru Kenyatta moving fast. Yeah. That is the principle of Maendeleo Chap. Let's get things moving. What are we waiting for? So that now justice can be given to our people. But several things. I congratulate Martha Koome, and it's great that I saw the report of women, in the judiciary. Many women in the judiciary and positions of power. And I'm a very big supporter of women empowerment. Women, when they empower, when they're in positions of power, they tend even to do better work than men. Yeah. They have less, I can say in quotes, corruption than men. They tend to be more focused. They can get their work done properly. And so when you see more women in the judiciary or in other places, it is very good. I'm a father. I have a daughter. I want my daughter to look up and say, yes, I can be whatever I want to be in this country. And that is very important for us to empower women. And the good thing is that Martha Koome is not there because she's a woman. She's there because she's qualified. We know about her. She has a history. She's written. She's been a very good judge throughout. She's there by her own right. So I'm very, very happy about her. But now, there's several things. I'm going to take liberty here and give a piece of advice to Martha Koome. The judiciary does not need a judge, a good judge to be the president of the court. We need a good manager. What we are lacking in the court is good management. And, we want speedy and fair judgments. You saw the gentleman who was killed in, who could not breathe. What's his name?
Floyd.
Floyd. From the date he was killed to the date the conviction was given was 10 months. Yeah. And Meisha. When were people arrested for corruption in this country? When were cases of people being killed in this place, in different places, splashed on the front page, and 3 years down the line, kesi jafika hata katikati? you know, this is now where we want to get to our country. Speedy conclusion of cases. You cannot say that Floyd's case ended too quickly, it is not fair. No, we need fairness. Number two, and because I remember once Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., he was my lawyer, has been a good friend and lawyer, and we were in court, the Supreme Court, during my case of one of the appeals, we called 2013. And we were walking out, and there was this woman who saw me and asked for my help, and saw Mutula and asked for help because she's been going to the court for 25 years on a land issue. 25 years. And when we interrogated her, the person who brought the case has died, and all the other people have died. But the case has never yet concluded in the courts of Kenya. That is really, really unfair and injustice. We need to have a system that moves it. So we need a manager who can get these things whipped. She needs to motivate the staff of the judiciary so that they can work beyond the call of duty. They need to get their rights. And she needs to hire, it's an advice that was given by Mwai Kibaki, President Mwai Kibaki, when he became government spokesman. And his only advice was, you know, hire the right people. It's not about your friends. It's not about people you served with in the civil society or you've worked with. No, hire the right people. Even if you have to import them from anywhere, get the right people to surround you who have the same vision and just move and change this country. Because our business community, they need a judiciary that works so that we can be able to invest and grow jobs.
All right.
Yes.
Yes, Trevor, I think the question you asked is why does there seem to be a rush to install the new CJ? Let me first take the opportunity to congratulate Justice Mother Koome for the appointment and awaiting now vetting. Because I've never had personal interaction with Justice Koome, but I've followed during the interviews until now, and I've now had an opportunity to look at least some of her background in what has been written in the media. I think I could summarize it by saying that I think she's a good person from what I see. And she's most likely able, given the attitude she's portrayed as of now and the history that she's had, she's in a good position to take the judiciary forward and take over the mantle from Justice Maraga. And directly to that question you've asked, then why does there seem to be a rush? While, as the papers say, there is a 28-day window. But is there a law that bars it from being done in one day? I mean, is there anything against being expeditious and speedy in executing? I do not think that there is. And the faster we do it, in my view, the better. It is undesirable to continue to have that vacuum and vacancy in the CJ's position. If you look at probably the agenda that is before the judiciary, most of the things that would require to be done, indeed it is better off and indeed much more advantageous if they finish this process. Everybody gets back to work. All those that were contending can get also, back to their business, and then this can be put behind the mind of Kenyans. Remember, there was this argument, and I think it was Otiende Amolo who made it here in our last discussion, as to the number of judges right now sitting in the Supreme Court. And indeed, he made a very, good case here, that supposing anything was to be taken to the Supreme Court now, and God forbid any one of them was not present, then it would be chaos. I think if you look at also in the legislative process of all the things that are pending in court, we have cases about the BBI, which is a big issue, in the country right now, that are pending in court, pending determination. And I believe having a head there who can be able to show direction, get matters resolved quickly, so that if any decisions are made, they can be made and be made good off, either dispense of them or give whatever ruling. I think it's to the advantage. What I would just urge, because I was flipping through the papers, I've seen quite a number of comments from most of those that sat for the interview with Justice Koome, you know, and I don't want to refer to any individual, but I've seen quite a few comments, you know, from one of the judges who says they are opposed to her, you know, nomination, and you know, her colleagues in the legal fraternity who may have felt that they also deserved the position. And I believe everybody who went for that position had a good chance to become a good CJ.
Yeah.
But it can only be taken by one person. Yeah. It's better off to take it in their stride and let her you know, take up the job if she passes through the vetting in the National Assembly and sit in that position. Lastly, Trevor, let me say, because I said it here loudly the other day, when we were asking that fundamental question, does it mean that our women can still claim that they have not gotten to the apex of ambition in whatever they seem because they want, because we still don't have a woman president? And I made the case here that we would be very wrong to place that so-called glass ceiling at only that level of being a president. But you can see with the nomination of Justice Koome that this glass ceiling at any level it has been placed in front of or above our women, they have continued to break it. And I think this must send a very positive message to our you know, women folk. At whatever level they have excelled, they have continued to do well, and I believe from the comments we've seen, people have confidence in the appointment of Justice Koome. I wish her all the best.
All right. Gerard Gay, you were here last week and you told us that it was going to be Fred Ngatia. And now you say he was rigged out of the CJ
You jinxed him.
Yeah.
No, what I said was the obvious, and I think the GSC were worried that if they would have given him the opportunity, of course, it is because of closeness with the house on the hill. And you had Judge Majanja did ask the same question. And you have heard even he has said that his marks were reduced by some GSC commissioners from Mount Kenya region. And I'm happy that Makawa Mtua has moved to court to demand the results of Judicial Service Commission. And I saw Professor Olive Mugenda, who is the vice chairperson of JSC, answering casually when she was asked what are the results. I think some of these people should go to understand Constitution 2010. Article 35 of the Constitution of Kenya, there is right to access to information. And I hope, and I would have wished media should have insisted, even a written, so that we know how for example, the People's Judge, Judge Marete, performed. Would have really want to know how he performed. So I hope the courts will expeditiously deal with that article, the provision of those results, so that we can be careful. But you know also, last week, I think the Judicial Service Commission was in any way tainted. You know, the chairperson of that interview, Professor Olive Mugenda, of course, has a history of ignoring court orders, yet she's the vice chairperson. And the matters have gone to court. You also, I think Citizen covered very well when the matter came out for, when they were challenging why she would chair, and yet the acting DCJ, Philomena Mbetemwilu, was there. So I think there is two things I want to mention. One is that as the chair emeritus of JLAC, I had the opportunity of interacting with the Chief Justice Maraga and judicial team when they had a problem with funding to the judiciary. So as we congratulate the CJ designate Mother Koome, we wish her well. I'm told she's a very tough lady. When you look at the history of human rights, you have worked with various organizations. But we want to say she's a Chief Justice that is a woman. As President Suluhu Samia Hassan said, mimi ni rais wa jinsia ya mwanamke. So we want to urge women, as my brother Wamatangi has said, that they need to go for these positions. We have seen women in corporate leadership. Why should they wait to be given up top-up seats? Why should they complain loudly? Why would they should go for these seats? And we want to challenge all the women that they need to go for these seats. There is opportunities. Maybe my only challenge to Chief Justice Martha Koome, whether they want, and I don't have a problem, by the way, within 28 days, even if on day 2 or day 3, that matter can be dispensed of, because we are worried, Trevor, I almost say, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are worried that that officers retire or move out of office the day, then you leave vacuum.
Yeah.
Of course, they could be acting capacity. I think I've read the BBI amendment bill. They are proposing that 6 months before you retire in office, the replacement should be done. And I think that's the positive thing, so that we can prepare succession plans for some of these independent officers. So I hope in future, even before Maraga retired, we should have had at least 6 months before this recruitment be dispensed with. So even the Inspector General of Police and many other independent commissions. Number two, I think one of the important things Martha Koome should do is the access to justice. As my brother Governor Mutua said, the efficiency of judiciary is to ensure that there is access to justice. But that access to justice must be facilitated with adequate funding. You remember Kenyan society is so litigious that we file up to 400 to 500,000 cases in a year. And of course, the backlog of cases, I think she needs to be innovative on how we can deal. And I'm happy the DCJ acting, Philomena Mwilu, the other day was trying to launch a small, those ones we call small matters that can be handled, that you need to go to the full court. So on the backlog of cases, and then another one is to ensure expansion of judiciary infrastructure. We want to see courts. Now, in fact, judiciary infrastructure is not only buildings, but also ICD infrastructure, so that now some of us who have court cases, nowadays we appear through teams. You don't need to go. And now my matter can be heard when I was arrested in Bungoma, when I have my matter here in Milimani. Of course, all of them are Trump charges by the executive, and we don't know, because I might oppose BBI. I might also be arrested like Linturi. So at the end of the day, we need an infrastructure that is very important, ICT. Another issue is that Martha Koome should know this, that funding of judiciary is very important, and I want to appeal to my colleagues that at least we should give them 3.5% of the total budget that we have, so that it can fast track. Martha Koome should know that we are entering into a season, and I would have expected the presidential candidate, Governor Mutua, that he should advise that this is a very critical moment in 2022 for succession in this country. We have seen intents and purposes of President Uhuru Kenyatta wants to succeed himself. So I hope Martha Koome will have the spine and the strength to desist any moves where the subversion of the people's will. If Governor Mutua will be elected, so be it. If anybody else will be elected, including Deputy President Dr. William Ruto, so be it. I hope she has the spine and the strength and the fortitude to withstand President Uhuru Kenyatta from succeeding himself, or the deep state or the system, by subverting the will of Kenyans. And finally, I want to say this. Finally, I want to say that Martha Koome, and I hope the issue of pushing Martha Koome to CJ, I hope there is no plan, because some of us has the word on the court. And I say about even delay of polls last time here, that it should not be a strategy to remove DCJ Philomena Mwilu. Because I know the argument will be to remove her so that we can have gender balance, where you have a CJ who is a female and have a DCJ who is a male. I hope let us allow judiciary to be led by women. We have now CJ Martha Koome, we have DCJ Philomena Mwilu, we have Anna Madi. Let judiciary, one arm of government, be run by women, so that we see this women leadership. But I hope some people somewhere are darting now to mischievously. We will not allow them to remove DCJ Philomena Mwilu because of revisiting. You know, some of us have not forgotten that somebody somewhere said we shall revisit judiciary. So we hope that the decisions that were made by Mwilu during the Supreme Court petition on presidential election should not come and haunt her and be moved from the office.
Otiende?
And maybe, Trevor, you could request Otiende Amolo, because now, you know, on that side it is the lawyers who sit, on this side is the president. but if we could request him to kindly address that issue of succession in the judiciary.
The judiciary.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know.
You have the floor, Senior Counsel.
Trevor, you know, I think the president sits that side, but the president lawyers sit this side. First, I want to thank Senator Cheregei for two things. For finally agreeing that there should be no revisiting of the judiciary.
Amen.
Finally. He was not always so persuaded. Secondly, for supporting BBI because of those provisions on succession of the CJ. I want to thank him for that. As far back as the year 2013, I authored an advisory when I was ombudsman on that very issue. that some of these state offices, the recruitment should start 6 months before the date that one is to exit. As for my friend and brother and future president, Senator Matangi, I want to say he must be a prophet of sorts. Because only last week, when we were talking about President Suluhu, he kind of predicted that we should not be worried. You know, some of these things can be headed by women. Sure. So he must be sort of a prophet. I think that, first, it's a good thing that we are in a situation where this process of appointment of CJ has come to fruition. Only last week in our discussion, I predicted that those orders of the court would be lifted, and they needed to be lifted, because you cannot stop a process just like that, especially an important process. So I think it is a good thing. Secondly, of course, I would be cautious, because I am in the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee as the Vice Chair, and it's just been committed to us. All I can say is that we will look at it within the parameters that we usually must. First, we must look at it in terms of the constitutional and statutory qualifications, including issues of merit. We will look at it in terms of the usual considerations. And those considerations include gender, it includes regional and ethnic balancing, it includes such considerations as, and parameters as the Constitution provides. On the question of gender, some people mistakenly thought that the norm that has usually been that if the CJ is a man, the DCJ must be a woman, is written into law. That is not so. What is written into law is the entire composition of the court. And as long as at least 2/3 complies with not being of either gender. But there is no requirement that the CJ and DCJ must be of opposite gender. Of course, we'll also look at it in terms of the views, the public views, because even though the public participated in the process of the JSC, we are also required to allow public participation now as Parliament. And in the course of that public participation, we will hear such members of the public as choose to come. I have seen some of the objections by some of the those who also applied. If they choose to bring them to us, then we will look into it. Obviously, the question of how the JSC is scored must come to us. And it is my belief that we will then receive all those issues and look at them. Only to say that some of the complaints are curious, because it suggests insider knowledge that some, whether they are right or not, it suggests insider knowledge which tend to question the integrity of those who are involved. Because for you to know what you scored, and even to know there was tampering, it must mean you have some insiders who are feeding you. And either way, it does not sound very good. On the question of speed, there can be nothing like being too efficient. There's nothing like being too efficient. So, because the Constitution says that once the JSC has nominated someone, the President will forward it to Parliament, I cannot fault the President for forwarding that name too soon, because that's efficiency. And the Speaker also only urged us as a committee to prioritize. The Speaker did not say shorten the days, said prioritize. So I think all of that is quite good. I just wish that the President was equally efficient in appointing the 40 other judges who were similarly nominated by the Judicial Service Commission, because the principle is the same. This efficiency must be praised, but the lack of efficiency in the other matter must also be condemned. Lastly, on the question of that my brother, Governor Mutua, was speaking about, like this lady whose case has been on for 25 years. It is true, and it is true that any Chief Justice must look into such matters. But it's not just the work of the Chief Justice. It's collegiate. Because at the end of the day, the Chief Justice cannot administratively interfere with the individual discretion of a judge. But it must create the environment to enable that. And that is also an additional reason why we must support the BBI initiative. Because it seeks to create the office of the Judiciary Ombudsman. The Judiciary Ombudsman would help in such matters, like inordinate delay. I can tell you that what Governor Mutua is talking about is real. When I was ombudsman, the second most number of complaints we were receiving after the police was about the judiciary in all sorts of ways. Some of them, as ombudsman, you have jurisdiction even over the judiciary. But there's a separate category in the Constitution that protects judges and the judiciary from interference with their work. They would plead independence.
Yeah.
As the ombudsman, several times that we sought to intervene on matters, especially regarding judges, in 8 out of 10 cases, they would abide and respond and explain in a way that we can deal with. In 2 out of 10, some of the judges will simply respond and say, we are protected by judicial independence and we will not respond.
Yeah.
You therefore need a constitutionally constituted office that embeds accountability within the judicial arm. And I can tell you that as the Jailer Committee, when we examine the various issues, including the question, is the creation of the Judiciary Ombudsman constitutional? The experts we engaged returned a positive verdict that there's absolutely nothing unconstitutional in those provisions, and I agree with them.
Okay.
So the creation of the Judiciary Ombudsman, together with other structures, will help address many of the other issues that is facing the
I
judiciary.
hope we will give a return on judiciary and ombudsman when we go to BBI.
Yeah, actually, we're going to the BBI right now, and I'd like Mama Tangi to start us off on this one. There's nothing we haven't said about the BBI. We know now that it is in Parliament.